Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Listen, it's Joel Simmons back again for It Starts With Me. All right, so I've got an opportunity to meet our next guest just for a few moments, but I'm already like loving this guy. He's got a great attitude, got a great spirit about him, and I think you'll be excited to meet up with him. There's gonna be a lot of things that we're gonna learn. We're gonna learn about his story, and it's just gonna be, I have a feeling it's gonna be a great episode. So just get ready for that. All right, listen, let's clear the board, make sure everything's out in the open. It starts with me. Podcast happens every single Wednesday, 12:30, right? So we need you to just jump on in there. We need you to subscribe, follow, like, love, be a part of the It Starts With Me community. All right. So get in there, 12:30 every Wednesday Eastern. All right. Also, remember this, that my buddy Michael Seville, co-host to Community Beacon, is running his show every single Monday at 9 o'clock. Motivational Mike Monday. All right, so make sure you're there and watch his show, participate. It's a beautiful thing. All right, and then last, every single Friday, we're going to be back again for the Community Beacon. And this is a place where we want to share and shed light onto different things. We want to bring about truth so that many people all over are able to feel and see something new inside their lives. And hopefully this will add to their ability to gain liberty in whatever they are doing, whatever they're going through. All right. So anyway, I want to get back to this show because I have a feeling this is going to be a really good show. We have with us here today, and I'm going to attempt this one more time. I've only tried it twice. Ejindu. Ejindu. I think that I got it right, but he'll let me know. He is the business owner of Core Development. He's right in Nevada, and what he wants to do, the reason why he jumped on the show is because he wanted to share a little bit more about his talk and talk a little bit more about his ME money experience, the book that he created about how he made it from zero. He's got a great story to tell, so I'm interested in hearing about this story as well. He also goes by the name of KC. So KC is a real estate investor, an author, and currently the #1 selling book on Amazon in personal finance and money. That's interesting. Love it. He's also an aspiring, motivational, and inspirational speaker with a goal. Check this goal out. I love this goal. To one day deliver a seminar to over 1 million people live. And in this day and age, you can absolutely do it. I mean, with just going before people live, you can do this. You can do this. I don't know if all of them will be actually inside the facility, but hey, you know what? Build a football stadium somewhere. It can be done. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, to your front, we bring to you now KC. What's going on, KC? How are you doing today, buddy?
Hey, Joe. How you doing, sir?
All is well. All is well, man. So glad to have you on the show. First off, did I get your name right that third time? That was the third time I said it.
Believe it or not, you nailed it out the park. That
What?
was a home
Yes.
run. That was a beautiful home run. I love it.
All right. Awesome, man. Awesome. I love it, man. I love your zeal. I love your smile. I love the way you just kind of like get in it. And I love the way that in seconds we were just like talking like we have known each other for years. What's going
Absolutely.
on, man? How are you doing this week?
It's been a wonderful week, Joe. It started off with me having the opportunity to really kind of meet with some of my partners, talk to some investors, and we have some great, wonderful things planned for this week. And this year, 2022 is our year.
I like it. So when you're talking with your investors, you're preparing what kind of stuff? I mean, what in this real estate, what are you doing? Are you renting? Are you buying, flipping? Are you working the burr? Or what's going on?
That's actually a wonderful question. So right now, what we're doing is we're focused on affordable housing in the Texas market for the low to medium, low income house families, as well as the homeless and the veterans. So what we're looking to
Wow.
do is to provide tiny homes. I know it's a new phenomena that a lot of people are still getting used to. It's big in Australia, it's big in other countries, but we're trying to bring that here to the United States. And these homes are between 450 square feet to around 750 square feet. Our goal again is to help the homelessness. We noticed that since the pandemic, a lot of people lost the ability to have a home, a roof over their head, and that's kind of what we would like to do is help these folks have somewhere to stay, as well as also work with the city to ensure that with the inflation, with things being so expensive, that there are families out there that don't get that might be priced out of their homes, but they still have somewhere to stay, and that's our focus.
That's powerful. This is a really big thing. And this is something that is absolutely necessary right now in the States. I can only imagine everywhere else because I think that this is a global issue. In the States, we have a big concern with what's called tent city growing in different states and different parts of our country. Have you had to deal with anything like that?
Absolutely. And actually what's amazing about this is we're going to be doing what we call a tiny home community. The goal behind the tiny home community is to put these houses, these tiny homes, but also to put manufacturing plants within a 10-mile radius of these tiny home communities. And believe it or not, the focus is to give these homeless individuals and these veterans, as well as these lower income families, a chance to actually have employment. So the priority employment focus will be for these low income households as well as these homeless folks to have somewhere to work, to actually have the chance to build their own homes as well. So it works hand in hand to keep economy moving, but it also allows to kind of shorten that wealth gap that we're kind of experiencing here in the United States.
Wow, this is big, right? This is
Absolutely.
huge. But can you name any of your investors or
I could give some information, but I can't go into too much detail. But
I got
4H
you. I got you.
Concept, yeah, 4H Concepts is who one of the folks that we're working with.
Okay,
Um,
big.
yeah, so 4H Concept, we're also working with a company out of Las Vegas, Nevada, as well. They're called TavitanCorp.net. So Tavitan Corp, they've done a lot of development deals in the Las Vegas, in the California area, and that was the original focus, was to kind of help. I don't know if you know too much about the boat housing. So there's been a boat housing crisis in California, especially in the Bay Area, where the
Hmm.
wealthy folks are kind of upset with the fact that a lot of people can afford homes in the Bay Area, so they're living on boats on the water. So what
Hmm.
that's doing is that's making the water, it's making it kind of unattractive for those wealthier individuals. They don't like to come out and see someone's whole entire life in front of their house. So what they've complained to the city. So what the city has done is it's actually led into these tent communities, like you mentioned, but sometimes that tent community doesn't really have enough infrastructure to manage some of these individuals, and a lot of them are employed. So what that has done is that has made people move into the southern cities because the southern states are cheaper
Hmm.
to live in, and that has also then caused a boom in our housing market. Well, with that also comes higher taxes and much more higher cost of living. So we have those individuals who have been residing in Texas for a long time now find themselves priced out of their homes. So that's why we decided to come up with a strategy that would help these folks to have somewhere to stay, also give them a chance to have employment for those who lost their jobs to the pandemic as well.
Wow. Wow. This is huge. I got I got two or three more questions for you just in regards to this because this is really interesting. This hit me hard when I went out to LA just last month. I was out there for about a week. We had a program going on and I took my mother with me and it was a great time. We had a great time. But one thing that we had to drive through in order to get where we were going was Skid Row. And going through Skid Row or quote unquote tent city, I found out so much, and it was almost, I just could not believe it because it's like during a certain point in time through hours in the night, you there is no real law that can be upheld to move somebody out of the way. So that area, I don't know what could happen if you were walking down Skid Row. It was such a vast amount of area, and you cannot tell anyone to evacuate. They
Sure.
have they have the rule of the road overnight. So I guess my question for you is, with the program that you're developing with your investors and the rest of your team, are you, particularly since one of your aspirations is to be a motivational inspirational speaker, are you going to be delivering some of the keynotes to these individuals that will help give them the new mindset to move into your programs?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, Joe, because at the end of the day, it does start with the mindset. A lot of people, people don't necessarily come and ask for help. Unfortunately, that's kind of one of the downfalls of humanity. But with the empathy that we have, we look at these situations and we say, what can we do? How can we make it where there isn't a stigma behind actually asking for help, right? Because most people look at it and say, if I have to ask for someone to help me, then it might devalue myself to myself. And I love your show, Joe. I love the fact that the name of your show says it starts with me, and that's something so important because a lot of people don't have that thought process. They see it as somebody else is responsible for what's going on. We just talked about this, California. You mentioned your experience, and believe it or not, that experience is something that is going on so much right now that even it's now starting to trickle down to states like Texas, and we're seeing more and more homelessness in Texas because there are people who are actually experiencing things that life is harder for them. The pandemic came in, caused a lot of people to lose their jobs. There were also individuals who, lost their jobs due to vaccine mandates, lost their jobs due to closures of businesses. And now these people need help, especially when it comes to housing. So one of the things I would like to do with my platform when I get an opportunity to speak in front of individuals is, one, help change the mindset, but not just changing the mindset of those that are less fortunate, but also changing the mindset of those who have the ability to help, and let them understand that them extending a hand to help these individuals is something that is very necessary in today's world as we have it constructed.
Powerful, powerful, 100% powerful. I had a conversation recently with an individual within my workforce. And one of the suggestions that I gave, or one of the things that I kind of argued or debated, was this: when developing, and this goes for any business, I would believe, but when developing individuals, there has to be a double mentoring program. And I like the way you just said that, because it's not just the mindset of those that need to be helped, it's the mindset of those that are helping, you
Absolutely.
know. And sometimes I have found that the reason why we don't have somebody who still wants to help is because there was no mentorship of those that are being helped to grow into those people that will help to return it. There should be mentoring, for those that are at the top, those that are at the bottom, and then remember, there's going to be someone that comes after them. So there should always be this inspiration to not only get well, but then once you are well, to help someone else become well, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Joe, I see myself as a connector, right? I believe that every one of us has certain gifts and talents in life, and I believe one of my talents is to be able to connect people. And I've been blessed and fortunate to know what it's like to be on the other side. And when I say the other side, I mean the lower income side, where things were rough. And now I'm in a position where I have access to people who have the capital and people who have the decision making powers to make these changes. And my goal is to connect these people and be, if you will, a medium where now they can funnel what needs to be funneled down that chain to allow the people who are struggling, who are trying to have a better life for themselves, actually get some assistance, especially in the housing market. When I will tell you something that really always hits me, and that is when someone doesn't have a place to stay, when someone wonders where their next meal comes from, it's hard to give them a message. It's hard for them to understand the message. It's hard for them to see past what's going on in their lives at the present time. So being able to provide them a solution, and now you can have a solution-based conversation to changing the mindset, but without necessarily giving them an option for a solution, a lot of times our message is lost.
Great point. Great point. There's a scripture in the book of James at one point in time has said that if you notice that your brother is without warmth, instead of just saying, "Be thou warmed and go in peace," he said, "Give them also a blanket."
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
uh, I mean, I believe that we just had this conversation on the community beacon, and it's just very important. Maslow's hierarchy, the first stage is to actually supply those things that people are in need of. And
Mhm.
through that, that is inspiration all by itself, you know.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So tell me something then, Casey, what has motivated you? What was the change? What was the transition that either brought you to this or the one that I guess you were going to discuss?
So my motivation is a three-part process, and I would say the most recent push was in 2019. Um, I've always had an approach that life is a level-based game. Okay. And some people might not technically understand that, but for me, this has helped me through processes. So, just to kind of give you a little synopsis as to what I mean, I grew up under some very hard times. I grew up in Africa. I was born in the US, but at 6 months old, had an opportunity to go back to Nigeria. And my family weren't the top level, rich. I'm not an African prince. I know a lot of people hear about the African prince. No, I'm not an African prince. I had a chance to have a good life up until 10 years old. Now, when I turned 10, I experienced a different side of life. My mom and my sister had some issues that they had to go work on. So I was put in a public boarding school, which technically doubles up as an orphanage slash boys' home. And what that did for me was it showed me a different side of life. It showed me the harshness of life. And I make a running joke. I say, a person who gets to live in a penitentiary or who gets to live in the worst parts of the hood, if you will, here in the United States, is considered a luxury person. Where in my circumstance, and I'll tell you why. I have cousins that have moved from Africa to the US and they live in these hoods, and these people are viewed as wealthy to their families. I had a cousin who there were seven of them that lived in one small bedroom. It's not a one bedroom apartment, a one small bedroom. The bedroom had they stacked their clothes high, and that was kind of what they considered um, a closet, if you will. So just bags with clothes on top of it on one side. They had a small cooker, like a little not electric cooker. It was because they didn't have electricity. They had a small little thing that they would add coal to cook their food in one section of that same room. And in the middle, everybody would sleep head to foot. So the parents would sleep at the ends and the kids would sleep head to foot. And I remember going there one time when he had some flooding because of the way the house was, or not the house, but the rooms were set up. You had multiple families living in these houses. And I remember going in there one time, they had flood, and you could just see elder kids. I mean, these are 7, 8-year-old children putting bags on their head to avoid their clothes from getting wet. Where they considered a bathroom is a small place outside with a hole in the floor, and that's where they got to, do their business, and they showered outside. So there wasn't any privacy. So I got to see that. And then I came to the United States, and, I have a YouTube channel. I expressed some of these things the other day. And I was just saying how, even though I went through an experience of eating one meal a day in some cases, and sometimes I do something I call 101, and 101 or 101, I call that one breakfast, skip lunch and dinner, or breakfast, lunch, and skip dinner. Uh, I consider myself so fortunate because I had a vehicle, I had a car, I had a place to sleep. So for me, those things were so important that when I see how people are going through circumstances and people are, going through some serious issues in life, it hits me because I understand that side. I know what it's like to be there. I know how people can be so discouraged and so um, tortured mentally when they don't have anything. It's people say it starts with a thought. Yes, I agree. It does start with a thought. And the thought is what changes your approach and changes who you are. But when your circumstance just seems so bleak, it's hard for people to be able to switch that mindset and have that thought.
Listen, I had to take a little moment to take all that in, because the truth of the matter is that oftentimes you'll watch a TV show or see a documentary or whatnot, and you'll hear a story like this. But for me, being able to interview you right now and to hear this story and to hear you tell me this is the way your life began, and to look at you and to hear the way you're speaking. You speak so well. You're very eloquent with your speech. You're very knowledgeable. You've got a great source of understanding and compassion, gratefulness, connectivity, empathy. You've got all these things going for you. And I'm gonna tell you something, because I would normally say this about myself. People wouldn't be able to tell that's what you came from. Do
I
you ever
appreciate
get
that.
that? Do
I do.
people tell you that?
I do a
They
lot.
believe you?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And believe it or not, I had some friends in college, and they thought I was a richy rich kid. They always assumed that I had a family with so much money, and we had so much abundance. But I agreed with that sentiment simply because I believe very strongly that you are who you think you are. Right? You're not defined by your circumstance. You're not defined by what the world says you are. You are who you believe you are. So I accept that, and I welcome that. When people call me Money Casey, I'm like, absolutely, I am Money Casey. Even when I had nothing, I was Money Casey.
Mm, that's powerful, because you're talking about, that's getting back to your point of view again about the whole mindset and everything. So what happened then? All right. So now you're 10 years old, and you're back into the States somehow.
No, no. So I'm 10 years old, but I'm in Nigeria. So I'm in this boarding house, if you will. It was called Federal Government College, Ilorin. And in the school, it was considered a school, but it really doubled up as a old prison. It used to be a prisoner of war camp. So
Wow.
we had kids that would stay there, and believe it or not, it was a very tough experience. A lot of these kids, to include myself, we had beatings all the time. I remember one thing that was very. I think it's a little traumatic, but I still laugh about it now. But we had this thing called General Lashing. It's General Lashing. So what that stood for was around 2 a.m. on random days every month, we would all get woken up. Uh, when we get woken up, we'll get lined up. There'll be a roll call, and each kid would get a beating. And the beatings would be with a stick. It would be supervised by the teachers, and the teachers would stand there and ensure that the senior students, so the oldest kids, would actually take out the beating on us. You never wanted to miss General Lashing, because that means you tried to escape, and it only made it worse for you. So we had to experience things like that. We had to experience, I said something on my YouTube channel the other day. I talked about how, eating a roach soup was normal because you were so hungry, you had to eat whatever you could eat. I'm a pretty big guy now. I weigh well north of 275 pounds. And yeah, I work out, and I've been able to kind of take care of my body, but I graduated high school at 140, 146 pounds. I went into high school, that boarding school at 10 years old, weighing about 205 pounds. I was a chubby kid. I was lots of love in my home. And I graduated, 60 pounds less than I went in. And I had that look of those kids you see on TV, like you mentioned, that have those malnourished big bellies, that you're taking pictures that, people are putting on the commercials and saying, help a kid out. That was me. I looked that way. And now I look back at all those experiences, and I understood that it was important for me to experience that because I had to be tough. I had to be strong enough to know that adversity comes in every level of life, right? As you grow through these levels, you have to experience adversity for you to be strong enough to handle the next level's adversity.
That's powerful. I really am hoping, especially some of the young men that are listening to this podcast, will hear that adversity comes at every level of life, and you have to be strong enough to overcome, or you will succumb to the adversity. My father, he always taught me. He said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
I
You
love
know,
that.
So you have to choose to be strong no matter what. No day is truly no day is truly given to anyone to to excel, but every day is given to everyone to do something with it. You have time and you have a chance. What you do with your time and what you do with your opportunity, with your chance, it really comes down to your own mindset and what you're willing to give, what you're willing to sacrifice. So you said that there was three things, right? And the first thing was level-based game. This is kind of the way you visualize life. Like you had to make it to the next level of the game in order for you to be successful. You had to, I guess, beat this game or at least make it to a higher level to be able to continue to move forward. What's the second thing?
The second thing is sharing, right? So first you have to understand it's a level-based game. And as you go through these levels in life, you get to meet different people in different walks of life. Then the next step is to share. And that sharing process involves reaching back and helping somebody else to go through their level and become a better version of themselves. And you say something very important here, Joel, and I really love that. And that is, speaking to the young men, young women, the young people of our generation, they need this help. They need to understand that as they go through adversity in life, that they will only get stronger if they let that pain become their why as they get older. There's such a high level of, suicide rates going on. There's so many people who are, easily discouraged. I mean, the pandemic came in and it caused a much, much larger version of depression than we've ever seen. There are people that now they could have been going towards a pretty good trajectory in life, meaning, ascending upwards. And then the pandemic happened and it knocked the momentum down. So with that, you have a lot of people now who are easily shaken. There's so much negative information that is being pushed out there, and it's easy for people to get sucked into that mindset and that life. So what I want to do with my life and what I've understood my calling is, it's not just connecting people like we talked about from the wealthy to the poor, but also uplifting the people who are willing to be uplifted, who want to be able to experience the next level, who are okay with saying, hey, I passed this level of the game and I'm ready for level 2. And that's kind of one of my big goals. And hopefully that answers your question.
Huh. That's impressive. Is that part of what's inside of your book?
Absolutely. So my book, Money and Experience, if it's okay, I'll put a silly little plug. It's called Money and Experience, M.E. It talks about the wealth equation. And I was able to come up with a simple math to be able to explain what the wealth equation is. And my wealth equation is journey plus value equals M.E, right? So your journey in life plus the value that you're able to acquire through that journey in life allows you to be able to have the money, and the most importantly, to get the experience of having the money in life.
That's powerful. I haven't had a chance to read the book yet. I would love to have read it before you came on.
Sure,
but
I'll send you a copy, Joe. Don't worry about it.
All right. I'll and see if I can get Anna to send you my address.
Okay.
So journey plus value equals ME, money equality. Is that right?
Money and experience.
Money and experience.
Yes, sir.
That's powerful, because the journey, so many times people are looking at the end game, and I still haven't heard you hit that. I don't know if that's going to be like number 3, but I see you saying level-based game, and then I see you talking about sharing, networking, and then reaching backwards. I still haven't heard you talking about actually getting to the end. But then when you start talking about your book, it's like journey, and journey is huge. My dad would always tell me the most important part of your tombstone is the dash in between the years. Everybody has a born day, everybody has a death day. And even if that day is the same day, which would be horrible because we're talking about a little baby, but the greatest experience is what happens in the small dash. That's what tells the story. that's what people will remember you for. The part that is overlooked is what sets, that is the legacy. That
That's
is
correct.
what the young people will be groomed to. It's like we think in America, we think about, in the States, we think about MLK Jr., one of my heroes. I think about my mother, one of my heroes. I think about Daddy Madison, one of my heroes. But it's not so much. I thank God that they were born, and my mother's still alive with me. But I thank God that I wish that they weren't dead. Maybe I could speak with them. But it was what happened while they were alive that left the impression on my heart and changed me in so many ways. So for you to say it's the journey plus the value is like, hey, write that down. You need to remember this. This is important. This is like really important. So what is number 3?
You hit the nail on the head, Joe. Number 3 is the experience. So you say something so valuable, and that is understanding your experience is what your legacy becomes, right? So when somebody understands what their experience in life is, now everyone has different experiences. Everyone has a different approach to their experience. Some of us can be more self-fulfilling with our experience process. We want to get wealthy so we can do the things we want to do. We can not necessarily be under anybody's thumb. We can do, live the life we want to live. And then you have some other folks who want to experience the opportunity to help people, to leave a mark. And I would use some other names out there, some that we even have living today. Jeff Bezos. Right? Jeff Bezos was able to create a product or a platform that will be here long after he's gone. We look at other individuals who are able to put things in place. Uber, another guy who I believe his name is Kalniki is his last name, and he's a guy who revolutionized the transportation industry simply by allowing the common man with the vehicle to have the opportunity to make a living for themselves, right? So there's so many of us out there, and I believe this. I said this in one of my YouTube channel videos the other day. I said, every one of us, there's 7 billion people on this earth. And for every single person, might have identical characteristics in the sense that we all bleed red. You might even have a set of twins with completely identical features, from the nose, the face, to every little detail. But what separates them is either their fingerprint or their footprint. So there's still something that separates each person that kind of makes their way through this earth, or this journey of life that we go through. So what that also tells me is each of us have different thought patterns that we can bring something into this world. And that experience is what we miss in this world. That's why, the common saying is the graveyard is the wealthiest place on earth. It's not because there's so many people dead in the graveyard, but because there's so many ideas that were never realized. There were so many things that we never got to experience because some of us took that experience with us and went to the grave with that. So my third piece is the experience that we allow the world to enjoy with us. And that's what makes life a full, complete circle.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. I feel that, and I think that that's a piece of that, especially that you said. I think that it's necessary, living in the presence, being presently minded, understanding that this is the day that you have. There will never be another day like this. Make the best out of that day with what you have in that day. How on earth did you become so positive with all that you have been through?
Now, believe it or not, Joe, it was never the case. When I left, at 16 years old, I had a chance to get out of the school. And through my experience in the school, all I thought about was the world hated me. I had this negative mindset. I hated the world. I came out with so much rage. I wanted to just, I had this approach of, fight. When people say fight or flight, I didn't think flight was an option. It was always fight. right? My thought process was kill or be killed, dog eat dog world, take what you can. And as I got through my life and my journey, my mother ended up having cancer at 30 when I was 30 years old. And when she had cancer, she was a very religious woman, believed in the Lord. She was an evangelist. You know, my book talks about an experience that I had with her where she stood up in the middle of a bus stop one time on the bus and started preaching to everyone. I was very embarrassed by it, but that was how much she believed in the Lord. She always wanted to share the message. She would pray in public places and loud prayers for everybody to know she was praying. And that was the kind of person she was. So when she had cancer, it was like I felt that God was punishing her because of me and my thought process. So it even made me have more hatred towards everything that was religion, Christianity. It made me have more hatred towards humanity. And in 2019, I faced some very, very, very tragic adversity. My marriage ended. I was married at the time. And in January, my wife and I divorced. My ex-wife and I divorced. In February, I had a business, a liquor store business, that I wasn't intelligent enough to know that you can get defrauded from a business. So I lost my entire business, over $60,000 in inventory, plus my real estate that I owned to a fraudulent buyer. And then in April, I lost my mother. My mother passed away. So after she passed away, I remember seeing her body and I remember thinking to myself that, wow, this world is so quick. Our time here is not guaranteed. And I had a choice to make. You know, when I buried my mom, and that's something my book talks about too. I remember when I went to the morgue, my mom had to stay in the morgue for 3 months because I couldn't even afford to bury her. I had negative $224.14 in my account when my mom passed away. My girlfriend at the time, and still my girlfriend now, helped me with paying for a Spirit airline plane ticket that I had to fly with no luggage. As you know, Spirit doesn't let you get on. You have to pay for any bags you take on. So I had to fly just with what I had on because it cost $50 to go and like $35 to come back. And then my uncles picked me up. So I didn't have any way. I had nothing. And I just kept thinking, I was upset with my mom for dying, as silly as and as crazy as that sounded, because I felt that she should have waited till maybe I had a little bit of money in my pocket to be able to bury her. But when I saw her body, it did something to me. It was like a light bulb came on, right? I understood something. I understood that the path I had been on had been a path of destruction. And that path was only going to lead to something worse. And I also understood that one day it would be my turn to lay in the box like she was, right? And I only had one thought to make, and that was change who I was. So the first decision I made, Joe, was I said I was never going to be broke again. I made that decision there and then, and it was like no matter what I had to do, of course legal, I wasn't going to do anything illegal, but no matter what I had to do, I was going to promise myself I was never going to be broke again. And it's so powerful when you make a decision, Joe. When you make a decision like that, I can't explain what it does to you, but it gives me goosebumps talking about it now because I still remember the way that felt. This was less than 3 years ago, right? I just remember that feeling and saying, this would never be me again. And since then, I've been so blessed. I've closed multi-million-dollar deals. I've worked with, multi-million-dollar individuals. I've actually created and seen multi-million-dollar projects that are paying me passive income that gives me the ability to have these conversations. And Joe, this is in a span of 3 years. So what I'm saying is there are people out there that can do the same thing.
Yes.
I'm not special at all. There's nothing about me that's special. If anything, if a person like me with the kind of mindset that I had and the negative mindset, the anger and the trauma could be in this position, then I don't see how somebody else can have that same experience.
Bravo, brother. Bravo. That's huge, and I talk about my dad a lot, I guess, especially on this show with you. But my dad, he would always tell me, Lafayette Jenkins, he would always tell me that God will bring a man even to his deathbed to have him to realize that he is real. And so it always stuck with me that, God will go through he'll go through hell or high water, as we would say, you know, to help somebody because all things work together for good. And not that the things that you were going through, you know, I would consider those things to be good. I mean, this talk about stress, you know, wife, business, real estate, mom. I mean, this is like the atom bomb of man, you know, just one man receiving a bomb and your life's supposed to be destroyed. This sounds like the story of Job. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Hmm.
This is like the story of Job, you know, just curse God and die right now
That's
because
correct.
there's nothing else left for you. Just face
Yes.
it. He don't like you,
Hmm.
you know? And in the end of it, it's like you found something greater and with one choice. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. One
Absolutely.
choice. You know, you saw your mom, and the way I take this is that you recognize the wealth inside of her, the lessons that were inside of her, and something inside of your heart just that was it. It clicked, and you made one choice, and it sent you onto a trajectory that brought you to this show today
Exactly.
and the many people that you've helped now is all based off of that one choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's beautiful that you say that because now when I experience any adversity, I make a movement. And forgive me if I do it, but I do this, right? And the reason I rock like this is for a reason. When you ever see a boat and you get on the boat for the first time, it does that. It moves, it kind of rocks back and forth. The reason why it does that is because it has to stabilize. And that's what God does for us, right? God makes our lives seem a little rocky because there's a calm coming. You just have to be able to withstand that calm, that slight, very slow storm, because then once you hit that calm, it's such a beautiful experience. It's the money comes in the avalanches. You have the experience. I mean, I've got to travel first class, business class overseas. It's a whole different world. I've got to meet billionaires. I've got to go to their homes, spend time with them. I've got to do deals with multimillionaires. I had a call this morning, with the guy who owns well over 3,000 acres of real estate, and we're looking at putting a solar farm in Texas. And those leases pay you till you die, and my son would be able to benefit from those things. And when I think back to 2019, it just seemed like everything was rocking, but now it's the calm. So what I'm saying is, live through that storm, right? The storm would pass regardless. But what happens in levels of the game, back to what I meant by levels, is if you don't allow yourself to experience that level and make it through that level, you continuously repeat the process. And sometimes it creates a situation where we repeat the process over and over. And then we get a little too old, and now we don't even have the power to fight anymore, and we give up. So I'm so appreciative to have a chance to talk with you, Joe. I think this is, beautiful. I love what you do. Again, this is great. Just telling people it starts with me. It's just amazing.
Man, I am appreciative. I am appreciative that you are on this show. I have absolutely enjoyed everything, man. I've enjoyed you. We have got to stay in touch, and we want you back.
Sure.
We,
Thank you.
we want you back
Thank you.
100%. Listen, we're about to close on out. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience?
Sure, sure. The only thing I'll leave again is just back to what I said. Remember, at the end of the day, a pregnant woman's greatest moment of joy comes right after her greatest pain. The process of childbirth causes so much pain, and right after that, you have the most beautiful experience you can have. So, no matter what you're going through in life, folks, just go through it, because your pain becomes your why, and your why gives you your experience.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Excellent. Casey Oyinya, did I say it
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir. That's correct.
Ah, all right. Thank you very much once
Thank you,
again
sir.
for being on the show with us. You all go to Amazon and find this book, ME, Money Experience. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Joe.
Listen, what I knew it. I could feel it. As soon as I started talking to him, I was like, this guy is going to be amazing. I didn't even get into a deep conversation like I have done with some of the individuals that come on. I just felt it from the very start, felt like a brother. And he left a lot of good. Remember, he's a man of empathy, uh, connection, gratefulness. And he left certain sayings like, you are not defined by your circumstances. Adversity comes at every level of life. You got to either rise or you fall to it. But why not rise? Because when you let pain become your why, then that can then become your victory. And live through the storm because there's a calm that comes after it. And he's living in that calm and prospering in that calm. And so should you. Remember, no matter where you are, no matter how you're viewing or listening to this, it starts with you just much as it starts with me. Peace.